So, you've been given a computer program to make, and your teacher said, hey, you do your coursework. And you've gone, okay, well, how do I go about doing it? What are the stages of the system lifecycle? Well, today we're going to be looking at the different stages, and we're going to be looking at what does it mean to use the waterfall model, the advantages and the disadvantages. So let's put 5 minutes on the clock and let's make it happen.
So the system life cycle, what is it and how does it work? Well, the most simplest methodology used for the system life cycle is called the waterfall model. Now the waterfall model has been around for years, and the idea behind it is that it's a structured method of going from the process requirement stage all the way through to building it and then maintaining the system. So we're going to be looking at each of these sections individually over the next few slides. So you've got the requirement stage, that's finding out what the program needs to be, then designing it, then developing it, then testing it, then actually installing it, and then maintaining it and fixing any errors that might occur. The key thing here in the waterfall model is that it is well known, but once the previous stage has been completed, then you move on to the next stage. So you don't start designing something until you understand what it is that you're designing. You don't develop any code until you've completed the designs and you're sure that the designs are going to work. So let's have a look at each stage, the analysis stage. It may be that a system is old, it needs to change because there's been some kind of outdated practices, there's a new government, new technology. But the analysis stage is looking at why do we need a new system? And the important thing here is the feasibility study that's being done at this stage. Feasibility study's job is to check whether the new proposed system is technically and financially feasible. A company might ask you to write a program which just cannot be written because the technology doesn't exist, or the time is not sufficient, or the amount of money isn't, etc. So the analysis stage is checking whether or not it's possible for the system to actually be produced. Next, you've got the feasibility stage. Now the feasibility study, which is part of the analysis stage, is talking to people, observing and looking at what's going on in order for you to understand the feasibility of the project itself. So these are called fact-finding methodologies. Okay, so carrying out interviews, observing stuff using the current system, using questionnaires, examining documentation. All of these help. You've also then got the design stage, which happens after all the feasibility study and so on. So the design stage is there to help you design the layout of the structures, the layout of the data files, ensure that you've got the right hardware and software, and you do this by producing something called a system specification. And that system specification is written and given to the client, and the client then reads it and says, yes, I agree with all of this, I am happy with these report layouts, these screen layouts, and then they agree and ask you to move on to the next stage. But the very important thing is, as part of the design stage, you're also carrying out a test plan, which is how are you going to test the system to see if the system worked properly. So the implementation stage is taking all the designs and now building it. So this is very simple to understand. It's requiring the programmers to do the coding, it's installing the hardware and software, it's preparing any transfer of files from the old system to the new system, it's about training the staff, writing all the documentation like user guides and technical guides. So that's the key part of the actual build. Then you've got the testing stage. So the testing stage is making sure that all the data has been transferred properly, all the program routines work properly, all the code generated is done, has no errors, all that kind of stuff that you're already familiar with. And you do this by having 2 or 3 different types of test data. You have typical data, extreme data, and erroneous data, which we'll look at a bit later on. Finally, the last couple of stages is evaluation. Now, evaluation, of course, requires you to look at the system spec at the beginning and ask yourself, did we and have we met the requirements? Okay, and do we need to do something to fix it? And do we need to go back and regenerate some of the reports or testing, etc.? We've also got software maintenance, which is a part of the system lifecycle. It's responsible for carrying out 3 types of maintenance: adaptive, corrective, and perfective. Now, of course, the software has been installed, the users have been trained, they're using the system. But you might find that you need some adaptive changes. It might be that the VAT has changed or some formula needs changing because of government changes. And so that's called adaptive maintenance. Corrective maintenance is looking at errors in the code that you've only generated as a result of using the system. And then you've got perfective maintenance, which is trying to make the program better than it was originally. Last couple of slides, I'd like you to spend some time paused and reading. What are the benefits and drawbacks of the waterfall model? Feel free to pause this slide and have a read through it.